Less than a week after the 2014 legislative session officially ended, Governor Mary Fallin signed into law a bill to pay for repairs to Oklahoma's crumbling state capitol. House Joint Resolution 1033 paves the way for work to begin later this summer, even as questions linger over the ultimate cost of the project. While lawmakers were able to agree on the plan to fix the Capitol, the fate of another structure just a few miles south remains in doubt. A deal to finish construction of the American Indian Cultural Center and Museum fell through in the final days of the session, leaving supporters wondering if the project will ever be completed.
You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who disagrees that Oklahoma's capital has suffered from years of neglect. Yellow barricades have blocked off portions of the Capitol for 3 years to protect the public from falling limestone, and raw sewage often leaked up through the basement. The disagreements concerned how to pay for necessary repairs. The Senate favored a $160 million bond issue, while the House preferred a less expensive plan to be submitted to a vote of the people in November. It took a falling chunk of concrete in the final weeks of the session to spur action on a $120 million bond plan. Office of Management and Enterprise Services spokesman John Estes says repairs to the Capitol will follow a two-track plan.
Just as soon as the bonds are sold and we have cash in hand, we can start work on the exterior. Time frame on that probably takes about 2 or 3 months to do the process of actually letting bonds. So late summer, early fall, we'll probably have cash in hand to begin work on the exterior.
Repairing the limestone facade is the first priority. Water infiltrating cracks in the facade has caused chunks of limestone to separate from the building. Mortar will have to be replaced, along with some of the limestone blocks, and great care will need to be taken to match the color of the existing limestone.
Replacing limestone on a 100-year-old building is a very lengthy process. It's a very nuanced process. It's very cumbersome. So that will take some time, and there will have to be some experts brought in to address how we match limestone that was pulled from a quarry in Indiana 100 years ago with what we might be able to find today.
Workers will begin erecting scaffolding outside the Capitol later this summer or next fall. Work on plumbing and electrical issues inside the building won't begin until much later, with an oversight committee establishing criteria for selecting a contractor and paying for repairs.
They'll decide what the scope of work is, they'll decide everything that's going to get fixed, they'll decide when it gets fixed, and then also have to decide whether any employees have to be relocated, and if so, how they're going to do that.
Estes concedes some repairs could be delayed, and some issues may not be addressed.
There's $120 million available, so there will be very limited opportunities to spend that money, and there will be a lot of parts of the building that some folks may want to see attention given to that might not get attention. We're going to have to be very focused with how we spend this money because we got basically the bare minimum amount that's needed to do the bare basic repairs.
House Minority Leader Scott Inman questions whether that's enough.
Yeah, I think when they finally crack this nut open, there's going to be a lot more problems in the state capitol than what they originally anticipated. And you can even ask the Capitol architect, Dwayne Mass will say that very thing to you.
That is true. That is true. That is why this phase of discovery must be our first thing. Teams of individuals are going to have to take the discovery phase to a different level and account for all of those unforeseen conditions. You may come in and you may see in a wall a hole in an obscure corner and not know why. That looks into a dark cavernous area. That's so we can get in and look at structure.
Capitol architect Dwayne Mass still believes $120 million will be enough to address the major issues plaguing the Capitol.
In 2009, when we did our study, that came up with what we could find at roughly $90 million worth of work. And then we had a reset for inflation and then money for unforeseen conditions. What it will force us to do is better prioritize the money.
One area that may not get immediate attention is the tunnel leading into the east side of the Capitol.
I've seen days when there's 1.5 feet of water in the tunnel. The waterproofing is broken down around it. The systems that were used in the 60s have essentially reached the end of their serviceable life.
Mass says there's not enough funding to dig up the tunnel to make repairs, but adds there are materials that can be injected into the walls to essentially waterproof the soil around it. Another project which may be delayed is air conditioning the public areas of the Capitol, such as the Rotunda. Mass says the price tag for that could go as high as $20 million.
The hardest thing is to understand, when you look around this great space, there's nowhere to hide ductwork. So one of the biggest tasks is how to get the air conditioning the cooled, the heated air into this space in an appropriate manner and not disturb this wonderful architecture.
Protecting the architecture and artwork inside the Capitol while repairs are underway will be a challenge.
We are going to have the help of conservators because dust is very detrimental. You can't simply just cover the art with a piece of plastic.
Oklahoma Arts Council Executive Director Amber Sharple says they'll work with the Capitol Planning Commission to address concerns associated with the restoration.
Vibration, jackhammering, security of pieces that are there, other factors of chemicals and other wet liquids that will be coming into the Capitol, dust, humidity and temperature controls. We'll be looking at a multi-phased approach to ensure that the pieces that are on site will be protected.
Sharple says while permanent artwork, like the murals inside the rotunda, will be carefully covered and monitored during the renovation, other pieces will be removed from the Capitol, although that poses another set of concerns.
You can't put them just in a storage unit. They need to be in a place that doesn't have a problem with pests and insects eating them. You need an inventory and security because these are very valuable pieces, not only monetarily, but also to who we are as a people. And then we also will be looking at things like flooding and water and climate control to make sure that those pieces that are off-site come back safely to the Capitol and that we monitor that whole process.
It's unclear yet whether limited funding will allow for preventative maintenance to protect the artwork from light streaming into the Capitol from the dome.
We definitely want to have that be part of the conversation, but really the construction is a multifaceted approach where we're going to be looking at hundreds of works of art, how to protect them, not only during the construction, but then what can we do with lighting, scrims, other things to ensure the long-term preservation of these pieces.
While plans move forward to restore the Capitol, the legislature left unanswered the question of what happens to the long-delayed American Indian Cultural Center and Museum. A proposal to take $40 million from the state's unclaimed property fund to be matched with $40 million in private donations to finish construction was killed in the House. Cultural Center Executive Director Blake Wade believes the legislature's failure to come up with a solution has caused Oklahoma to lose credibility within the international museum community.
And they're frustrated because we had all worked plans to work together on various collections and all that. You know, today, honestly, I cannot tell anyone to count on us because we really have got to work this out internally in Oklahoma, whether we want to do this project or not do this project.
Private donors are also frustrated.
You know, they've gone 3 long years. They have other commitments that they could make. But they've stayed with us because they think this is important. So that's what I'm spending all my time right now, going around to all the donors.
Wade insists the project is not dead, but says the next move is up to lawmakers.
We have 4 or 5 plans going forward at this time, primarily waiting for Governor Fallin to tell us what she wants to do, what the city of Oklahoma City wants to do, and in between are donors and what they would like us to do. So it's all these things accumulating together at one time.
Legislative leaders say the Cultural Center issue is likely to be back next session, although it's unknown if the $40 million in private donations will still be available.